Welcome to the AusRehab podcast, the show where we explore people, ideas, and stories behind workplace rehab. I'm your host, Stephen, and we're sitting down with members of our AusRehab team to talk about what we do, why it matters, and how we're helping Australians get back to work and back to life. Today, I'm joined with Eric and Matthew. We'll be diving into why we do what we do. Let's get the ball rolling.
Let's do it.
Okay, first off, give a little introduction about yourself and what do you do at AusRehab? Eric?
Yeah, so my name's Eric. I've been at Oz for precisely 6 days, still getting the hang of it. But yeah, really grateful to be joining the team, just helping our customers with mostly workers' compensation claims, bit of a CTP, and yeah, really just familiarising myself with all the claims that we'll be working with.
Okay, Matthew?
Yeah, I'm Matt. I'm a registered psychologist. I'm also a team leader here at AusRehab as well. I've been here for about 3 months now, but I've worked in the rehab space for around 4 years at previous companies. So yeah.
Hey, no, let's dive deeper into that. So, I don't know, Matt, since you're going, what was your story? What was your...
Yeah, so I come from a psych background. So I'm a registered psychologist. It's quite a long journey to get there to become fully registered. But we're here now, and I take a real liking to the WorkCover space. My kind of theory behind why I do the work that I do is I believe that if I can help someone who's in one of the most vulnerable places in their lives on WorkCover, then, you know, if they ever do jump out of WorkCover, the other clients should be easy, you know, because these people on WorkCover, they face all different types of challenges. The WorkCover space in itself is a challenge, recovering from an injury. I have a couple of thoughts as well on the actual WorkCover space not being a very positive space for the person to recover. So yeah, that's why I really enjoy what I'm doing at the moment.
Let's dig into that later. Eric?
Yeah, so finished up at uni with a background in exercise physiology. Came out of uni, initially wanted to go the standard trajectory all into clinical, but one of my friends actually recommended me into the rehab providing space. I coming out of uni didn't have any sort of hesitations against it and jumped straight in, and then I realized I really enjoyed the side of kind of you're still using your clinical expertise, but you also got that organizational piece to it. Just working as a team, which is something I really enjoy, to be helping, as Matt mentioned, like in these circumstances where a lot of the workers' compensation claimants are having a difficult time, we can work collectively to make sure that they're back to not only to their work, but also returning to their life, really making the most of what they can do beyond their injury, and then I just really enjoy helping them in that sense.
What is it like in the psychological injuries in a corporate setting?
Yeah, in what sense?
Like, are there many? Are there, is it as prevalent? What's the go?
Yeah, plenty. I think there's quite a good mix of both psychological and physical injuries.
What's the percentage? Like,
Yeah,
I think right now,
I was wondering, yeah.
in our companies, probably like, I wouldn't say 50-50, we're like 60-40 split.
Physical
To psych. What is it like in a corporate?
It is a lot, yeah, more psychological. It's definitely picking up as well. I don't know
picking up
the specific
so much. It's
numbers,
not even
but
funny. Like when we first started, I think we were like 1 or 2 psych claims. Like probably like 5%, 10%. Now it's like 40%.
yeah, it's gone up a lot, and I think a lot of it is.
Like if you had to put a general term on the cause of the psych claims, was there a recurring theme for you in corporate with the psych claims? Was it workplace bullying? Was it bad managers? Like obviously this is the client report, so it is what it is. But was there a general theme to the psych claims?
Yeah, what you mentioned in terms of whether it's management or workplace stresses, all that sort of stuff. And then a lot of it can actually end up being informal diagnoses. And once
Informal as in what? Like a I wouldn't say psychologist, but
Like who's making
who's
the
making
informal
these? Yeah,
diagnosis?
as in it's entirely just based on self-reports from the patient to the doctor, right?
Yes.
And it's kind of, as you mentioned, taking things by face value. There's not really any sort of further investigations into it. And it's, taking whatever that patient says.
Okay. How did you guys, coming from a corporate health and well-being perspective, how did you guys deal with a worker coming in and submitting a psych claim and it's workplace bullying? How did you guys manage that internally? Like, was there mediation in place? Was there facilitated discussions? How did you guys manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with a lot of the psychological claims. A lot of the time it will proceed with a factual. So hearing all sides of the story, whether it's with the staff member, with their managers as well, understanding the perspective of both sides and whether there's any evidence as well, whether it's from colleagues.
Like witnesses, those sort of
Yeah,
things
correct.
as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
to identify whether there's actually been a trend or if this has occurred to other people as well.
Like from the same manager per se.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. What was I about to say? How did you guys, like, what do you think the rate, like, for a psychological claim, whether it's workplace bullying or whatever it might be, what was the rate like of that person actually returning to their position? Because in my experience, it's quite low, right? If it's workplace bullying, the chance of that person going back and working under that person is extremely low, in my experience.
Yeah.
What was it in
Don't have
corporate?
the rate,
Yeah,
but
of
more
course.
so, I do notice a lot of trends where whether it's wanted to report to a separate manager or transition into an alternate role, it's very unlikely
Yeah.
they go back to their position
previous
prior
position,
to the incident,
Yep.
but they'll kind of look at alternate, I guess what you could label it as suitable duty or alternate duties.
Alternatives with the company.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Interesting. Would the organization ever agree to like that being their permanent duties, or was it always just suitable duties? Like there is an end date to these duties.
Oh no, there would be a bit of moving around just to see if it's something that can be accommodated in the long term.
Yeah.
Because it is difficult if it's a management problem.
Yes. Yeah.
Just because they've moved away and then taken some time away from them, there's no guarantees when they come back that it's all good from there.
Yeah. It's a tough space.
All right, let's move the conversation to another area. Did you guys read the report that Sarah released about rehab providers? No, that's fine.
I don't think I've seen it. No.
That's fine. It was a few days ago, and there was one interesting excerpt that I read, and I was like, I'll read it out, and then you guys give me your opinion, like what you think. So the question was, what really drives return to work outcomes? All right. Research shows the biggest influence on whether a worker successfully returns to work is not medical care, but actions and attitudes of the workplace itself. It ties in really cool with the conversation we're having at the moment. So it goes on to say a positive employer response to an injury improves return to work rates up to 65% for psychological injuries and 42% for physical injuries. All right. I don't know where they came, where they pulled that number out.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that it's correct.
Yeah.
Early contact from the workplace makes a major difference, with 63% better outcomes for psych claims and 26% for physical injuries. Employer pre-claim assistance, such as offering support before the claim process, boosts outcome by 33% for psych and 18% for physical. A workplace without disputes or disagreements supports recovery more strongly than medical care alone. I don't know how they're going to get a workplace without disputes or disagreements, but good luck. And then the funny thing is, this is the claim. By contrast, medical care focused on return to work directly contributes only 8% of the outcome, or to the outcome. So essentially, what they're making is, what they're claiming is the doctors and all the healthcare providers, all that stuff, only impacts the claim by 8%. It's the employers that are contributing most. What do you guys think? What's your opinion? Like, first of all, do you think that's? My first question is, do you think that's factual? Is that aligned with what we're seeing?
I've to be honest, from a psych perspective, I think I agree with all of the points from Sarah there. A lot of the clients that I see report each of those points. Actually, the points of I haven't had any contact or support from my employer. There's been not really any discussions about me coming back. There's been no discussions on mediation or what the organisation is doing to support me. I think if they were to have those things, I think for psych claims, that's what I'm speaking towards, I think the return to work outcomes would be much, much higher.
Really?
Yeah, that's my thought.
Oh, then what do you recommend an employer do? As in, like, a company person, return to work coordinator, or if you're a small company, like with 100 people, there's probably only one person, HR person, that has no experience in, working somewhere, anything like that. What would you, give? What advice would you give that person?
I would say that the person has to be sympathetic as well. Like a lot of the times I've found with certain return to work coordinators, the sense that the client's getting is that this person works for the organisation and doesn't actually care about the injured worker, right? So a bit of sympathy and empathy towards the injured workers can go a long way, despite that person's individual experience of that situation, whether it might be workplace bullying. If the return to work coordinator or their manager gives them empathy and sympathy, I think that leads to a really good outcome, right? And I've had claims where that has been the case and the person's made a full recovery and return to work. And then I've had the opposite where it hasn't been the case, and I've been reviewing the claim and not for 1 second did I think this person would be able to go back.
So you're claiming that it's not anecdotal, it's genuinely you see an improvement if the companies actually just talk to the person, talk.
Genuinely, yeah.
It's not even like, helping,
and
nothing like that.
Yeah, and like some of the times I've found that my client will say to me, oh, my employer hasn't spoken to me once since I've been off, right? And then I'm the middleman, I've spoken with the employer. So this is a bit of a disconnect that I've kind of found, is that the employer will be like, oh, like, we don't really want to call him because we know he's distressed and he's experiencing these psych symptoms, so we don't want to distress him even further. And then on the other hand, the worker's like, well, they're not calling me, they don't care about me, they don't want me back. So there's a bit of a disconnect there of the employer's like, oh, we know he's had an injury, he's off, he's struggling, we don't want to call him. But then from another perspective, the worker's like, well, they're not calling me, I'm not supported, they don't want me back.
How often do you think that happens? Percentage. Give me a percentage.
If I had to do percentage-wise, in my experience, I'd say it's about 50-50, where the employee is not contacting the client. And that's not that the client has said, I don't want them to contact me or anything. It's just I've had no contact. So whether there's like some education for the employer around what's appropriate contacts, making contact, whether it might be email first or those sort of things. I've had clients who have had zero contact, right? And then that gives them the sense of, I feel unsupported, they don't want me back, right? And then to that point, on WorkCover, if things aren't return to work focused, then that's when we get into longer claims, right? Because then what leads from the mistrust from his current employer, when he goes to look for a new employer, he's also mistrusting, right? What if this place is the same as the last one? What if they don't contact me? They don't want me here. What if I get a similar manager? So I think there's a big space there. And I think And I feel like there's probably a space for education, and it's kind of what you were speaking about before, Eric. Education of whether it's managers or HR, if they're managing their WorkCover claims, of how to navigate that intricacy between the employer and the worker.
So if you were to make a recommendation to these companies or return coordinators at these companies, what would you suggest? Email first and then phone call, or is it phone call straight away, or phone call and ask?
I think with psych claims, again, it depends on the individual situation and what the injury was. I think I would go with a phone call first, but my thought is if there's no answer on the phone call, I would follow up only with email or text contact after that, and see where that goes. And then,
Is this a week after injury, or like in a few days, few hours? What do you think?
yeah, look, I'm thinking like within a week at most, right? Making contact with the worker, seeing how they're going. You know, if this person doesn't have adequate social supports in place, a phone call from their employer could go a long way, right? This person has just switched from working 8-9 hours a day to being off, being at home, might not have adequate social supports in place, is not getting any call from their employers. Their life's just been flipped upside down.
I think you're right. I think you're a point. Okay, let's go deeper. Like, what questions would you ask if you're the employer and then you have an injured worker? What questions would you ask?
Yeah, look, I think in the beginning, I think it's more so checking in with the worker. I've had occasions in the past where the employer has called and the conversation has been, when are you coming back to work? And it's like, well, last week my manager just went off at me in front of the whole team. What a ridiculous question to ask is what the worker's thinking. So I think at the beginning, it from that sympathy, empathy perspective, I think it needs to be, how are you going? Is there anything we can do to support you right now? Yeah. Those sort of things, like before even referring to us as a rehab provider, is there something the employer can do to link that person in with adequate supports, right? Because we can obviously do that and we can help with that, but sometimes we don't get claims for, a few weeks per se from the insurer. Yes. So if the employer can come in and check in on how the work is going, ask them if there's specific social supports they can put in place, I don't think it would be that hard for the employer to, look up if there was a local psychologist taking the client in to see someone. I think it's just like if you're looking up for your own well-being, So I think the employees could take a bit more of a leading role, at least in the beginning, with the workers' recovery, because I think those first few weeks are pivotal to whether or not this person comes back to this company, especially with psych claims.
And I feel as though it's only going to get harder the longer you leave that communication, because then that's when the injured worker will start feeling the employer has been becoming less and less involved. Whereas even though if you just go straight in with that tough conversation, even if they're not comfortable speaking with you on the phone, as long as they're aware that you're supportive of them, it makes that support much easier in the future, as opposed to a few weeks down the track, then you check in on the injured worker, then it becomes, I can understand the perspective of the injured worker where they'd feel the ulterior motive is just to get them back to work. You've been off work for a few weeks now, where are you? Whereas if you check in initially and, as you mentioned, it's obviously not appropriate timing to be thinking about return to work at that stage, then it's a lot more personable, actually thinking about whether it's a physical or psychological injury. You're actually thinking about their well-being separately to work. Yeah.
That's cool. What's your opinion on that, article that Zero wrote? Like from a physical injury perspective, do you think employers actually have a much bigger impact than doctors and physios and all that stuff?
Yeah, 100%. In my experience as well, I feel as though, as Matt said, a lot of injured workers just say when they're in contact with us, they haven't heard anything from the employer. It comes off with a bit of spite, and that's when it bleeds beyond just their workers' compensation claim. And a lot of the times, if it's the employer is on board, they want to work with ourselves, with the injured worker, it's a lot more collaborative. It's all tying back to that environment piece where we mentioned earlier. If it's a space where the injured worker feels supported, where as opposed to someone, if let's say they have no work capacity, staying at home entirely, there's no one supporting versus a very collaborative team, then if you just look at it black and white like that, I think it's no question the frequent contact from the employer will provide way better outcomes than the individual just staying at home.
Yeah.
That's cool. What's a collaborative team? What, in your opinion, what does that look like?
I think within will be the injured worker, the employer, any treating parties that they have, and the insurer, and then ourselves.
I think for me, treating parties have to communicate. There has to be clear lines of communication.
I think you just called out like...
Yeah, just called out everyone. Like there's been times where claims, you don't hear from the psychologist, or you don't hear from the psychiatrist or the physio. And, we're relying on these people to treat these people. And if we don't have those clear lines of communication, we can't. It's really hard to get the best outcome for that worker.
I actually have an opinion of that. It's some people might not agree with it. Probably like some people sees this and then copies it over. It's probably even bad for me. But I honestly think if one of the reasons why psychologists don't come to us or reply to us is because they're not getting paid to speak to us. If you ever read the gazetted fees for physios and psychologists, there's no payment.
There's no communication
There's
costs.
no
Just the report.
Reports, case conference, and it's sometimes I have to say insurers don't even approve this case conference.
Yeah.
And it's just consultation. So like if they're not getting paid to do it, there's no incentive to do
Correct.
I agree. Yep. I think it's another pitfall of the WorkCover scheme. Because I think if we had communication, we would get a lot better outcomes. So yeah, I don't think it's totally the psych's fault. These people are working, seeing 6, 7, 8 clients a day, sometimes replying to the treatment questionnaires, especially when they're not able to charge for them, is just not productive, and they can't do it.
Okay, so pro tip for companies out there.
Yeah.
Go and speak to injured workers. For Merrick, it's constant communication before they get injured, and then everything else. Make sure you contact these people as much as. Any other tips that you recommend?
Yeah, just make sure you're contacting your injured workers. Make sure it's still a case-by-case basis is what I would say. If the person doesn't want contact, that's fair enough. But just make sure that person knows that you are there to speak with if needed. Okay, especially in those first couple of weeks.
Cool. That wraps it up.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys, for watching. Thank you for Eric and Matthew for their time and sharing their stories. And if this helped you, please follow, subscribe, and comment below. If you like our stuff, check out our website as well, AusRehab.com.